next. Review the purpose, the responsibilities, and the trust fund currently held by the town. So, for those of you at home who are watching this, the commissioners of the trust fund is always one of those, seems like, areas that no one knows exactly what they do. So we'd like to get that out of the way so that everyone knows exactly what this position holds. The commission manages and controls all trust funds, perpetual gifts bequeathed for the benefit of the town or its residents. Interpretation of each fund's guiding instrument for its term as to management and distributes the income from the trust in accordance with the terms of each. Review and approves or denies requests for distribution of funds. Serves as a resource for inquiries about individual funds and their purposes, and keeps records of its doing. And at the close of each financial year, makes a report showing the total amount of the funds and their investments, receipts and disbursements, setting forth in detail the sources of the receipts and the purposes of the expenditures. In a nutshell, people in the past have bequeathed to the town a sum of money to leave as a legacy for the community. And what the commissioners do is they use those funds under strict guidelines of what the bequeathment was for to disperse them. Funds such as purchasing books for the library, maintaining the Russell Memorial Building, equipment for patient care, which the Board of Health has the benefit of, scholarship to Acushnet students, the Ruth Tabor Scholarship, support the public schools and the school committee, historical restoration of Long Plain and the Long Plain Museum, cemetery care and maintenance, an art show, and potting of the ways green, which the Conservation Commission has access to. And hopefully in the future, the commission would like to put a listing of all of these funds. I think there's a total of 26 off the top of my head. Put all these funds on the website so that people can see exactly what they are and what the bequeathment entails, so that if you have an idea, you can have access to some of these funds. What do you think about that? Mr. Lipset?
Yeah,
yes?
very well.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right, so there's a little bit of homework that's going to need to be done, and that's what I think that we should do, maybe establish a subcommittee to look into the research of this. What do you think?
Could I say a few words? Based on what I had picked up from one of the former commissioners and what the treasurer held, I do see that it looks like in 2006 that there was a pretty good cleanup of where the funds were at. I included a listing of the bank statements, what's available in each of the funds now. But there is definitely, as you mentioned, there is a lot of research that needs to be done to compare our records to that of the treasurers, and also to make sure that the funds are being dispersed of properly.
You know, it's you see this on the ballot, Commission on the Trust Funds, but I don't think, I never had any idea what that meant.
Right.
And I think you see other like library trustee, and some people get confused over the two positions. This has nothing to do with the library except for disbursement of funds for bequeathments. So this just handles town residents that have passed away and left a sum of money to the town to be used for various purposes. And I think it would be nice if in the future that if we can establish a website on the town website to maybe have a form that we can put on so that people in today's world who love this town the way we do can leave a legacy based on whatever, maybe it be an environmental, the library books, the schools, whatever, the cemeteries, so that we can continue to grow this trust fund so that people have access to funding for projects and good ideas.
I agree very much. I don't know how much either one of you have had a chance to dive into some of the funds, but some of the funds are pretty sizable. I know we have a meeting house restoration where $100,000 was placed in a trust fund, and the interest is what is allowed to be used. And I know the Historical Commission, Pauline Texera, she's fantastic, so she knows that these funds are available. But it's a great way for someone that, in this particular case, loved the meeting house or had an affinity for the meeting house and wanted to make sure that there would always be some money available for restoration. And it's a great, as you mentioned earlier, about a great legacy. It's a great thing to leave to the town to ensure that these pieces of property or areas that individuals really enjoy, that they can keep giving back. So,
You know, I know from my years in the school department that the Ruth Tabor Scholarship has always been awarded to top students in the 8th grade as they move on to high school. And I think it's great to see that people, someone, Mrs. Tabor here, had thought long ago to establish a bequeathment that would continue to live on.
right,
And I just think that's such a great idea.
right.
Okay. So, where do we go from here? That's the question.
Well, you mentioned about doing the research. I have every town report, pretty much every town report, dated back to 1860, held it in the clerk's office. And my suggestion, I did a very brief, I chose one fund and I tried to narrow down where it began for the history that we weren't able to find in either of these records. And I was able to find some pretty interesting information. So my recommendation would, as you had mentioned, to do a subcommittee to extract that information from the town reports. And if there's any other, I don't know if maybe the library has some records. I do know that I now have a contact at the New Bedford Library that may be able to help a little bit with that as well. So I would make a motion that we do form a subcommittee to just do the research and bring back to the commissioners.
Good idea. You want to make that motion?
Yes, I'd like to make that motion.
Second? All in favor of subcommittee?
Aye.
Aye. You know, I look at the list, I think roughly there's like 26 funds here right now. And it would be nice to do a little bit of research on this, dive into the Acushnet history, and bring these people to light and put it on the town website so that everyone could see what these funds, not only what they hold, but who is Ruth Tabor, who is Henry H. Rogers, Sylvia Manta, who are these people? I think they should be respected in a sense for their vision of a long time ago. From what your research shows, a lot of these funds go back how far?
Well, the commission was established in 1922.
Okay, so almost
And-
100 years ago.
Right,
Yeah.
and it looks as though it was dated back to 1917 was the initial funds.
Okay.
So those were probably handled by the treasurer, by the town,
Yeah.
and then they decided to form the Commission of Trust Funds.
Okay. So we're going to have to do a deep dive into the history of this. The numbers that we have here listed, as far as the balance, is that current?
I believe
Most current?
these are the figures that I received from Nick in the finance, and he reconciles
Okay.
them each month, so I would say that that's probably
Okay.
pretty close to perfect.
Now, I'm going to guess, without knowing, that some of these larger ones, like the Meeting House restoration, it says restricted.
Yes,
That is the principal amount?
yes.
That you cannot touch?
You cannot touch that.
Okay, so that
Right.
becomes like seed.
Right,
Okay, Okay, so
Right.
the unrestricted is interest?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you see restricted, that means that that's an amount that can't be touched, unrestricted. So every time you see a restricted, there will always be an unrestricted? If it said restricted?
Not, if there's a restricted, yes, I believe that there would be, but again,
Right.
I'm new to this as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know, did you, Tommy, ever have any conversations previously about that? Restricted and unrestricted funds?
I mean, yeah, it's essentially what you're saying. There's a amount that you can't go below. It's not necessarily always set up the same way, like it's not always the interest situation, but whenever there's a restricted amount, there'll be an unrestricted amount.
Okay.
And now, from your experience on the board, each one of these bequeathments has a criteria that you have to meet. I know
Yeah.
there's one that says Protestant churches to help the poor.
Yeah,
So it has to be a Protestant church in Acushnet
correct.
in order for them, and it has to be for the purposes of helping out the disadvantaged.
Yes.
Okay.
I do know when I spoke with Nick, he did say there were some funds listed on here that were not,
Active?
no, that they're not trust funds. So, and again, I haven't really had a whole lot of time to research it.
Yeah.
But for instance, I know the golf course farmland, I'll use that as an example. My understanding is when the golf course was originally put in, there, from each round of golf, there was to be, I don't know if it was a quarter, there was an amount that had been assigned would be put aside for recreational use. And my understanding, and again, I have to research it further, but I do believe that that's part of the farmland. So I don't know, that wasn't necessarily left to the town, but that's something that the town established when the golf course was originally approved.
And that money that goes, that's earmarked, that quarter per round or whatever it is,
Yeah.
what is that used for?
It is supposed to be used for recreational purposes. So there have been talks about walking paths.
Yeah.
And I know at one time they were talking about possibly even moving the soccer fields
Okay.
from the schools
Yeah.
over there. So I don't know all of the criteria to it, but that's something that we can find out
Yeah.
when we begin our research.
Okay. Looks like pretty much covers everything. Item 3 is a date for next meeting. I would suggest that we hold off on scheduling another meeting till we do a little bit of,
So sorry.
homework here.
Okay.
Okay? And then we can kind of, I think we should do a little bit of research, then we have something of substance. And what I would like to see is concurrent with doing the research, is to start to come up with an idea for a web page on the town's webpage, a section so that people can see what this is and what it's about. So we'll work on all these things at once, shouldn't be too hard to do all this.
Okay.
Okay? Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Plan.
With no further business before the board, motion to close.
Second.
I need a first motion.
Motion to close.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are all done. Thank you.